Our scripture reading, gospel reading for today is from the 9th chapter of Matthew, verses 9 to 13. This is on page 9 of the New Testament. As Jesus was walking along, he saw a man called Matthew sitting at the tax booth, and he said to him, "Follow me." And he got up and followed him. And as he sat at dinner in the house, many tax collectors and sinners came and were sitting with him and his disciples. When the Pharisees saw this, they said to his disciples, "Why does your teacher eat with tax collectors and sinners?" But when he heard this, he said, "Those who are well have no need of a physician, but those who are sick. Go and learn what this means. I desire mercy, not sacrifice, for I have come to call not the righteous, but sinners."
This is the word of the Lord.
Thanks be to God.
I was preparing for this service, preparing for the sermon, my message this morning, and I came across one of those lists that are on the internet, because they got all kind of lists there. And usually it's just clickbait. They're just trying to get you to click on there so they can increase their revenue through advertising. But this one was pretty cool. And it was also funny. And it was signs you've overstayed, you're welcome. Now there was a bunch of them, but I chose the top 7, okay, of these. Number 1, signs that you're visiting with someone that you've overstayed, you're welcome. Number 1, they heave a heavy sigh upon encountering you in the morning, as if they were hoping you had magically left in the night without saying goodbye. That's number 1. Number 2, they no longer have fun plans after work or on weekends. Instead, they just order takeout and retire to their room for the night. If that happens, you may be staying a little too long. Number 3, you basically consume everything edible and drinkable in the house. They're asking you to pick up groceries. That might be a sign you're staying a little too long. Number 4, they mention some super cheap deals on flights, which they just happen to stumble across on the internet, totally randomly. Number 5, they start asking you tons of questions about life back home. So, how are they getting by without you at work? Who's feeding your goldfish? And etc. Number 6, their pets have switched loyalties, abandoning their former owners and following you whenever you get up to go to the bathroom. And number 7, which is my favorite, and the final one in that list, and the most obvious, they keep telling you to go home. And if you're still staying after that, well, you know, I'm sure that we can come up with a few of these of our own whenever we open our households for hospitality to relatives or guests over a period of time. And we may not say it, but we certainly think it sometimes, don't we? I also found, looking at another couple of sites, some funny welcome mats. You know, a welcome mat is supposed to be a sign of hospitality. But these were welcome mats for our time. And one of these, which was my favorite, which made more sense to me than anything else, was the welcome mat that read, "Leave it on the doorstep and get out of here." And that's really the way it is these days, unfortunately. I mean, let's face it, we probably know our UPS and FedEx driver better than we know our neighbors. Hospitality in our time, especially now in the time of the social network, is more digital than it is face-to-face. And certainly, if you get on the internet, you know that it's not always hospitable, is it? hardly so. And you hear so much language about how we wish we could go back to the good old days, whatever they meant, when hospitality was real, when hospitality mattered so much more than it does today. Do you think that's true or not? What do you think? Well, let me say this. If we really understand history and look at it from the point of view of customs and modes of hospitalities, we will learn that while hospitality was indeed a cultural norm, and including in the time of Christ, almost it seems to the point of absurdity, such hospitality was limited. It was limited only to certain people and only to certain groups. And we see this very, very clearly in our story this morning. Very clearly. Because this is a story about hospitality and about what Christ did to move us beyond hospitality. The culture of the first century in Israel was indeed one that practiced hospitality with many elaborate rituals. But the fact is that in that culture there were more outsiders than insiders. Meaning, you could almost come up with a list of the insiders who would be welcome, who you would put on your welcome mat. Welcome who? The insiders. In the Jewish culture of that time, the insiders were acceptable family members. Acceptable family members. Paul had been disowned, the Apostle Paul, by his family, and made it very clear in the New Testament that he was not welcome back to his family, so his name would have not been on the welcome mat. Also, the educated, they were insiders, the wealthy, powerful, and the religiously righteous. Pharisees, the Sadducees, the priests, the rabbis, all those who were in some kind of position, leadership in the religion of Israel. Also, Israel's governmental leaders. Also, those with wealth and property, and the righteous Jewish males, always, and their families. They were on the inside, and finally, those who were invited were on the inside. You're invited. You're on the inside. So who were the outsiders? Everybody else. And I mean everybody else. You were not welcome ever. Homes of first century Palestine or Israel. I won't even go down the list because it's too long. But there were so many on the outside. And we won't go through the list, but if you read the New Testament, it is literally a litany of those who are on the outside. Now, of course, Jesus of Nazareth had most of the qualifications that he needed to receive the hospitality of his community, the hospitality of his church, the hospitality of his nation. His family, Jesus' family, had the right descendants. He was descended from the tribe of Benjamin. He had been raised in the synagogue, and he regularly attended all the religious festivals in Jerusalem with his family when he was growing up. They went every year. Let me tell you, that was an effort to do that. That was a lot of work in those days to get from wherever you were into Jerusalem for those festivals. He was known, at the time that we hear this story, he was known as a teacher, a rabbi, and a healer. He had a strong following. You might even say he was somewhat of a celebrity in his time. Now, he was known as a religious leader because he spoke with great wisdom, great understanding. So he was also a teacher. He was even respected and supported by some of the ultimate insiders in his culture, those who were on the ruling council in Jerusalem. So yes, Jesus would have been welcomed as an insider in many of the homes in the communities which he traveled to, where he lived. But while these qualities opened many doors for Jesus, in many places there were things about him, particularly, that closed other doors. He was not counted among the wealthy, powerful. He had somewhat of an humble upbringing. He was not a certified religious leader. In other words, if you think about it in terms of academics, Jesus did not have tenure. He was untenured. He was not certified. He did not have his certificate of ordination on the wall. Even more, he did not embrace the traditional obligations of the family. And that was somewhat of a scandal. Jesus was the eldest son in his family. He had obligations to take care of them. And yet he had abandoned them, created another family of his followers, and was going around doing these things. And it was somewhat of a scandal, even to his own family, that he was not there to live out these traditional obligations. So he was an outsider in that way. And when I spoke about the prominent leaders, the men in Israel, who supported him, some of them did, but they did so in secret. Did not do it publicly. And that tells you all you know. We think about Nicodemus, who came to Jesus in the middle of the night. Middle of the night. Clearly, Jesus was not welcome in some places. But most importantly, and we know this as we study the story, the way Jesus was treated in his culture was not so much about who he was, but how he treated others. That's how they judged him. The way he treated others, which is unlike anyone had ever done in that culture before. And this story from the Gospel of Matthew gets right to the heart of it. That story begins with Jesus not only talking to someone he shouldn't have talked to, but he went further and invited this despised outsider to follow him, to become one of his inner circle. I mean, how do we view the IRS today? We probably don't like the IRS very much. Probably because when you deal with the IRS, they don't deal with you necessarily gently, do they? But then the IRS, right, is this massive bureaucracy, right? So it's kind of hard to individualize. Can you name somebody you know in the IRS? You might be somebody, but probably not. Matthew, however, was the IRS. He was the IRS in a very corrupt system that took money from people, rich or poor, and gave it to Rome. So you can imagine how Matthew and his peers were treated in that culture. They were not a nameless bureaucracy. Everybody knew these people, they hated them, they considered them traitors, and here was Jesus, not only talking to them, but inviting Matthew to follow him. So then, the story continues when we see suddenly Jesus dining in someone's house, probably Matthew's, not only surrounded by his inside group, his disciples, but now surrounded by other tax collectors and, according to Matthew, those that were labeled as sinners. Sinners. While we do not know all that word in the Greek encompasses, I can tell you this. The sinners were all outsiders. Every one of them. They were the ones who, according to the religion and the manners of Israel, did not deserve 1 ounce of respect, 1 ounce of hospitality. The welcome mat was rolled up, the doors were locked, and people hid from them. They were not going to let them in. Now, the insiders were also there, probably tagging along. They wouldn't have eaten at the table because these were outsiders. That's what we eat with outsiders. Probably tagging along, watching. And as they witnessed Jesus fellowship, sharing, breaking bread with these horrible people, they are absolutely aghast. But they don't speak to Jesus directly. It says that they speak to the disciples. So I want to kind of for a moment. When we read it, we can't really get the mood of the scene. But let's imagine it for a moment. Maybe there's a kind of a buzz in the house as people are talking. Maybe there's more silence. People are listening to Jesus as he talks. And, or maybe just people are just discussing and they're waiting for the food to be served, whatever. And suddenly, 1 or 2 of the Pharisees say very loudly, "Why does your master eat with tax collectors and sinners?" Maybe there was dead silence. Dead silence. Notice they said to the disciples, quote unquote, but they are sitting there, the tax collectors and the sinners, and clearly the Pharisees were interested just in embarrassing them to let them know they're not welcome in the culture, and certainly embarrassing Jesus. And there was just a still hush. Don't people get quiet when they're embarrassed? Kind of hang their head in shame. You can see Matthew looking down. Others going, well, here we go again. We don't belong here. And then we hear Jesus' response. Jesus' shocking and unorthodox action of, number 1, inviting Matthew to be a disciple. Number 2, followed that by dining with Matthew and dining with the most unwelcome of Israel's population. All that is intensified by this incredible response to the Pharisees' criticism. And I don't think it was said, I'm not going to say unkindly. Well, here's how I think it might have been said. There's this silence. And then they hear the voice of, all of them hear the voice of Jesus say, "Go and learn what this means. Go and learn what this means. I desire mercy, not sacrifice. For I have come to call not the righteous, but sinners." Go and learn what this means. The power of that statement is unimaginable. Those words had the power in that culture of a nuclear explosion. Think about it. Jesus, in those words, is undermining both the culture and the religion of Israel. He's just throwing away thousands of years of tradition and understanding. Throwing them away by making 2 statements. First, he says to these Pharisees, "Go and learn." How do you think the Pharisees heard that? They were the ones that were supposed to know. They knew. They had the degree. They had the certificate and the credentials. According to them, they had nothing to learn, and here is Jesus saying to them, "Go and learn." You don't know something. Maybe even you don't know anything. Go and learn. And then, that's the culture being undermined. Then he goes to this. Mercy, not sacrifice. Now, let's not bypass that. Mercy comes from Hosea. Mercy, not sacrifice. Sacrifice was the whole foundation of Israel's religion. It was all built upon sacrifice. Now, they didn't sacrifice in the synagogues. But when you came to Jerusalem for those festivals, or any time you went into the temple, if you were allowed to be there, it was for the purpose of sacrifice. That was the whole structure of Israel's religion. And here is Jesus quoting God in the voice of Hosea, saying, "I desire mercy, not sacrifice." Sacrifice was also at the heart of the ultimate insiders in Jerusalem and in Palestine. The high priest. Their power was built upon their ability to control the sacrificial rites of Israel. Jesus' words literally undermine the false religion which God had never intended for God's chosen people. It just tore the structure down, tore it to pieces. Kind of begins to make sense why they sought to crucify him. I mean, we read these words, but it's hard for us to understand the power that they had in that time and how courageous it was, not only for Jesus to say it, although that was his purpose, but for his followers to follow him, having said those things. Mercy undermines us as well. Mercy undermines our pride and our self-righteousness. Mercy undermines our judgmental hatred. How can we hate someone and be merciful? How can we judge someone and be merciful to them? John R.W. Stott, the great Anglican priest and Christian evangelist out of Great Britain, said this, and I think it ties directly into exactly what Jesus did at that meeting. Stott wrote, "We must allow the Word of God to confront us, to disturb our security, to undermine our complacency, and to overthrow our patterns of thought and behavior." Jesus gave us a new culture, a new tradition, not a culture of manners and mores or rituals, but a culture of love and mercy, an eternal culture which literally demands from us the immolation of ourselves. The immolation of ourselves. We must destroy self in order to be a part of the kingdom of God. That is why we come to this table this morning. Because we have much to learn, don't we? Much to learn about what it means to follow Christ. We have much to learn about what it means to show mercy and to share love. And that is why Christ gave us this table and tells us to come and learn of me, for I am meek and lowly in heart. So let us prepare ourselves now as we come and learn. Amen.